Hi everyone, Brian here. I just wanted to give you all an FYI so you don't get confused or let us know of our error. On this episode, we discussed this year's holiday lineup. We recorded this episode the day before Ubisoft announced that Watch Dogs was going to be delayed. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to edit all instances of Watch Dogs out. We're still looking forward to the game, however, whenever it comes out. And to the best of our knowledge, all the other games we mentioned still plan on coming out when they're supposed to. So with that said, enjoy the episode. It's the most wonderful time of year for video gamers. As we head into the holiday season, we've got plenty of reasons to look ahead with anticipation. With two major video game consoles about to launch, gamers are setting their sights on what these new toys will be capable of. Current-gen console owners also have reason to look forward to the holiday lineup as well. So what we'll do is we'll break it all down for you right here on Downloadable Content. Hello everyone, welcome to Downloadable Content. I'm Brian, and with me on this particular episode we have Ben.
Hello everybody.
And we have Wyatt.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back to the both of you. We're going to be chatting about the holiday lineup of video games this year. It's a lineup of games that has some anticipation for many gamers. We have two major consoles this year for the first time in 7, 8 years?
Something like that.
It's been a while since the consoles.
2006. Yeah, 2006 was the last time we had two new consoles released at the same time.
Yeah, I remember when that came out, not freshman year, sorry, sophomore into junior year, and it's been a long time.
The industry, people have been begging for new consoles, and then the Wii U decided to get a head start, and people are still like, eh.
Yes, people do sound like Wario.
Poor Nintendo.
Well, not
honestly,
so much poor Nintendo, but
yeah, honestly though, I think that the hype for these consoles is the lowest I've ever seen it in terms of like the new console generation.
I mean, I think people are starting to say that they're more interested in kind of unique stuff and rather than just prettier graphics, and you know that hasn't really been. I mean, and a few games have kind of stood out towards getting, you know, more interesting experiences. But I think another factor that can't really be ignored is that just the number of developers that have closed in the last 6 or 7 years because people can't afford to make games anymore. It just becomes more and more expensive every time the console specs go up. So I think part of it is just flat out, hey, there are fewer games that are going to be made because there are fewer people around to make them.
That's why we have indie games.
Indie games.
Indie games.
Yeah, and the thing about indie games is that indie games are sort of on their own in terms of they don't need a big release holiday. They just kind of do their own thing, so they don't play by the rules, so to speak.
Yeah, but they also sometimes have to deal with some other issues like, you know, bad publishing policies by the first parties or...
Oh, no, absolutely.
Whatever.
I was just saying in comparison to, like, for the holiday specials and stuff like that. So, like, a lot of indie games, it's sort of like, oh, it's going to be on this system and this system. You don't get as much of the, what's it called? Exclusive Xbox, exclusive PS4. There's a little bit less of that.
Yeah, you still get some of them, but I see what you're saying. All right, so who wants to go first?
Well, let us dive right in. And since we are going, this episode is coming to you just before the PS4 gets launched, I figured we'll probably start with that. So, I mean, obviously, PS4 comes out November 15th. Just for reference to all of you listeners out there, all of these dates are U.S. release dates. those of you who happen to be listening this that are out of the country.
We should also state that the day of this recording is October 12th.
Yes, so things are subject to change, as developers are wont to do. So, November 15th is all PS4. That is, it's their day, and from what I'm hearing, pre-orders for PS4 are pretty much all gone. There's a lot of anticipation, but if all of the media is to be believed, Sony stands to make a killing. And well, I mean, obviously it's the cheaper of the two systems by $100, and there's not. I mean, for the launch lineup for the PS4, for me personally, doesn't. It's not a spectacular lineup. There's a lot of sequels and or continued entries into already established franchises. We don't have a lot of new IPs coming out. I mean, obviously, I know gamers who are very excited for Assassin's Creed 4 and the next Call of Duty game, Call of Duty Ghosts.
Call of Duty, hooray!
And Battlefield 4.
Call of Duty
Shooter
is now...
and more different.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Wyatt.
Sorry, no, yeah, the Call of Duties have just become the Madden of the first-person shooter world. It's just every year, new Call of Duty, hooray!
Yeah, with technically just a roster update. It's shooter and more different shooter. I mean, I know that people get very, very fanatical about, this franchise is better than that franchise, but, for those of us on the outside looking in, it's way more of, okay, I have other games where I can shoot things. They don't come out on an annual basis, but they add way more to the formula than a dog.
We'll get to that. I'm sure we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Madden NFL 25 is getting a PS4.
Hooray!
Because of course it is.
And I'm looking at this list, and I'm noticing not hardly any exclusives. I mean, we see Assassin's Creed 4 for the PS4, and then on the 22nd, just a week later, Xbox One gets it. Again, along with Battlefield 4 and Call of Duty and Madden and...
I mean, that's been the state of the industry though for years. It's essentially if you want the most unique games possible, you get a Nintendo system and you get either of the other two systems, whichever one you prefer, depending on a number of factors, and you're pretty much assured that you're going to get most versions. Even the stuff that it's a timed exclusive. Well, you know what timed exclusive usually means at this point is we're going to pay you just enough to say that you have to wait 6 months before you bring it to the other guy's system. I mean, they're and by then usually it's you'll get all the patches, you'll get all the DLC, you'll get all the extra stuff anyway. In a lot of cases it makes more sense for people to wait than it does for them to buy games up front because the better version's going to come out in a little while. They don't want to leave anybody out, but at the same time they are, trying to jumpstart what's going to be coming next. I applaud the fact that they're actually taking the effort to say, or some retailers, or for some games, you'll have the option to, buy the say Xbox 360 version of a game, and then when the Xbox One comes out, trade that in and pay a small fee to upgrade to the Xbox One version. But at this point, you got to remember they're not quite at the point yet where they have the established install base to say, okay, we can stop developing for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. They're going to get there. They want to get there as soon as possible. But luckily for those of us who don't have any interest in buying a new console just yet, they're not going to do that to us so quickly.
Not quite yet. I mean, there's a couple of new IPs slated for the PS4 launch. There's a game called Knack.
That looks nifty.
Looks like it could be interesting.
And then, of course, let's just dive right in. Let's talk about Watch Dogs. That seems to be one of the top games on many people's want lists.
I mean, it's a fresh new IP. It's presenting some interesting ideas that became all the more interesting and relevant when all of the Prism stuff started to come to light. I mean, I personally would if you had something like the processing power of a PS4 with the touchscreen controller of the Wii U, I think that would be just outstanding. As it is, I think the tablet-esque controller of the Wii U, or just adding a second screen experience with, an external device, could add a lot to the game and could show a lot of other people, hey, this is how you make something really unique and interactive. But it's pretty intense. It seems like there's a lot of ways that you can interact with the environment and that the game is going to interact with you. I think that's the kind of fresh experience that I was really talking about. It's not just about giving us bigger worlds. It's about giving us big worlds that have more stuff to do, that do more stuff to us, and that we can just generally play in.
Absolutely.
And Watch Dogs is not a PS4 exclusive. It's going to be on everything.
Yeah, and I think everyone's going to buy it. I mean, everyone's really excited about this, and if we're going to go back to that original idea of how we're kind of seeing a lot of the flaws of the gaming system really show with the new consoles in terms of just more repeats of the old IPs and other people that tried IPs dying out, Watch Dogs is like this great thing of, here's what we can do with the current system. We're not going to reinvent the wheel, but we're going to take things that people are really interested in, which is modern society, the idea of, over surveillance, and we're going to put it into an open world and not so much remake the wheel, but really polish it and give it a new coat. And I'm really excited about it. I remember seeing it at PAX this year, and it was fantastic.
I'm just curious, just from an intellectual level, what the difference is between the PS4 version, the Xbox One version, and the version that gets released for the current gen consoles.
Absolutely, because I'm getting in for the Xbox 360 at some point. I'm not jumping into the console wars as of yet. I'm going to wait this one out for a bit longer, but yeah, I want to see what is the difference, because right now, no, I'm really surprised I haven't seen a lot more people capitalizing on that. Like, look what it's going to look like on your Xbox 360, but look what happens if you get a nifty PS4 or a Xbox One. What the difference is going to be. I haven't seen a lot of those comparisons in the news yet.
And also the Wii U version.
Yeah, I mean, well, the expectation at this point has got to be that hopefully that the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 version is going to look comparable to the Wii U version, or rather, the Wii U version is going to be built to a standard that's going to be comparable to those other two. Whether or not that's actually true is anybody's guess. There's a constant catch-22 of developers don't want to put time into the Wii U because they don't have an install base, and Wii U doesn't have an install base because developers don't want to put time into it. Which actually, there was something I saw that the other day that really annoyed me was Deus Ex is being released in a collector's edition bundle, and it's apparently the first time that the series is going to be on the Wii U, I think. But what I saw that really kind of annoyed me was that they are charging $20 more for the Wii U version than they are charging for the 360 and PS3 version. That's not, if I read it correctly, that was not $20 more because it's a newer version. They're doing a re-release. The re-release is going to be on all three systems, but since it's the first time that they're putting it out on the Wii U, the price is going up.
Oh dear.
Yes, because that'll get people to buy it if it's the most expensive of the versions.
I mean, yeah, and then they can say, well, we put a game out on the Wii U and nobody bought it. And you did, yes. Technically, that's not untrue. You just were,
There's been a lot of catch-22s entering. We need new IPs. Wait, new IP didn't sell immediately because we didn't advertise as well as Call of Duty. We must hate new IPs. It's just
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If they're gonna do something new like Watch Dogs, I am very much all in favor of that, and I hope it gets a lot of success because it is a new IP and it does play with some new ideas. But if people are going to inevitably start copying it because that's how the industry works, I hope they copy the fact of, oh, people tried new stuff and liked it here, not let's make a game with a guy that kind of looks like this dude doing stuff that kind of looks like the stuff he did.
Exactly, I'm with you there.
With the thing and the thing and the thing.
And the stuff.
So Watch Dogs comes out November 15th for the PS4. It then comes out for everything else November 19th. Xbox One gets it on its own release, which is the 22nd. So, just seeing what other potentially new IPs we've got, because
There is one.
everybody knows about the franchise spam at this point. So, Wyatt?
There is one. I'm not sure. I'm trying to find a release date for it. I think it's going to be 2014, so I think it's past our window. But The Order looks really cool.
Oh yes, that's the Victorian steampunk one, isn't it?
Yes, it's the Order is really cool. It's going to be doing a little bit of like an Assassin's Creed sort of thing with the alternate history, or kind of like weeding itself into history. The idea is, there was an idea where now there's half breeds of humans that have kind of been been inserted into the humanity several centuries ago. I think it was like 7th or 8th century. But then there's a war that happens, and then the Order, which is set in 1886, begins when the knights actually get in a liquid called black water. This might sound a lot like Dragon Age in some, where they drink that elixir that makes them really strong. Spoiler alert. But if
Thanks, I hadn't played that, jerk. I'm just
but the
kidding.
black
Go on,
water allows you to drink, allows you to weigh. The knights become halfway immortal, so they can actually, they can live for centuries. They age much slower. They can fight these things. So pretty much, it's half breeds versus this secret order that's keeping the half breeds from warring against humanity. So it looks like it's going to be more of the same in terms of, it's not going to be like a new genre, or it's not going to try to like break genre. But it looks like it's a new IP. It's a new idea. It definitely has its own feel to it. From what I can tell, a little bit like Dishonored, but actually a little bit more realism in terms of its art style. And it looks nifty.
Are you sure that's coming out this year?
No, it's not. I think it's coming. I think I see the.
No, it's
I just
definitely
found
next
it,
year.
2014.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That was only just announced, I think, back at E3.
It was.
So I mean that's something that would have, I think, generated a lot more hype for exactly the reasons you said. It is kind of a new. I mean, alternate history games aren't anything new, but at the same time, when they're unique ideas, they can still at least be exciting and interesting to people. And a lot of the, from what I understand, there's only been like 1 or 2 trailers. There hasn't been a ton of information about it released yet, but that's probably because it's, a little earlier into the development cycle, and they didn't want to, pull out all the big guns before, hey, look at this great game that you're not going to play for 9 months because it's not going to be ready yet.
It is really weird that, like, it seems like the new console wars and the new shiny of this holiday season are, hey, look at all the new shiny consoles. Oh, you want games for the new shiny consoles?
That would have been a good thing for us to have focused on. I mean, look, it makes plenty of sense. They handed developers, the software development kits, and they said, cool, here's going to be the limits of what you're going to get to work with. Go ahead and push it a little bit with that. And what's the first thing? Every time that there are new generations, they take existing games and they rebuild them for better graphics. They don't really start playing around with more unique ideas early on. They don't have the time to, because you can't just shut down development on what you're working on and restart it. I mean, you can, but a lot of studios can't afford that kind of financial hit that would require. You don't know if, for instance, there may have been developers that after Microsoft announced all of their, DRM stuff on the Xbox One that they later retreated from. We don't know if developers called them up and said, we're not comfortable pushing out games for a system that's going to be this restricted if the players are going to have this much of a problem with it 6 months before launch, let alone when they actually buy it.
Fair enough.
We don't know what the kind of financial constraints were. The developers probably are going to have to make some tough decisions, and so the easy thing to do is take an existing game and just bump up the frame rate, improve the visuals. Listen, it took they said in an interview that Wind Waker, the HD re-release, took them about 6 months to develop. Now, granted, Nintendo knew the system a little bit better, but you're talking about jumping 2 console generations and, significantly retouching a bunch of stuff, and it took 6 months to get that game released. I mean, path of least resistance here is just going to be take something that's already well into its life cycle and put on a fresh coat of paint. So I give them a little bit of a pass for that, but at the same time, that doesn't. The problem is there wasn't a ton on my list that I was going to be excited about anyway. So just taking that same list and prettying it up doesn't really do a whole lot. It's not like the reason I'm not buying a next gen system is because I like the games and I think I have to play them on the higher resolution. I'm not buying a next gen system because I can buy most of the games that are already going to be out on the current systems. And they haven't shown me so far that there's going to be a massive difference or a massive inciting reason to jump ship, as it were.
Got it.
Well said. Well done.
Yes, quite.
Yes, bravo.
Thanks.
Let's see what else. I mean, obviously, as I mentioned, you have more franchise spam. We have, the next Dead Rising game, the next Forza game.
Next Batman.
That comes out. Well, that's late October, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's like in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I was like, wait.
I mean, that counts, right? I mean, I'm assuming holiday at this point. We're considering pretty much from now to the end of the year.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
I mean, if you look at, yes, it's not the traditional holiday season, but really, if you look at when developers and studios release big games, it's really from the end of the summer until January. I mean, September through September, October, November, December tends to really be when most of the heavy hitters for a year will come out. Grand Theft Auto just came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's going to be a big holiday seller. I mean, I know it's already sold a lot, but that's one of the big ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I kind of think as far as game developers are concerned, we're already in the holiday season.
Yeah, Pokemon algebraic notation.
Yep. Pokemon Variables came out today.
Yes, it did.
And is already getting some good reviews. The other game that just came out, talk about a new IP, Beyond Two Souls, which I was on the fence about. I thought this could be really interesting. I know David Cage games can be a little hit or miss. The thing that's kind of bothering me is I'm reading the reviews tend to be kind of very split. Some really like it, some don't really hate it, but it's there's a big gap in between some of the scores. So
it's one of those games, love it or hate it, no real middle ground.
Not even hate so much as I think people. I don't want to say they didn't get it because that's just obnoxious. But I think people. I think there's a certain type of playstyle that you have to appreciate, and it's a little off the beaten path. And I can completely understand people who say, "No, I don't want to play a 10-hour QuickTime event." And I'm kind of in that camp. I don't. If I'm going to do something like that, I'd need a story that's going to really be engaging, and that could always be hit or miss. There's not going to be a universally loved story. Somebody's always going to have something wrong with it. But I mean, that's something that would be interesting to keep an eye on. That could do very well. The collaboration between big name Hollywood talent like Willem Dafoe and Ellen Page, and a video game is not something that you always see touted a lot. So I think that could be an interesting study, but personally, I don't see myself picking it up unless it gets way cheaper or unless I start hearing way better things about it.
It's nice to see them trying new things, but yeah, I'll probably wait until it goes down in price.
I don't have much of a choice in the matter. It's, cash is kind of not really my thing at the moment. This whole thing about, being a college student.
Sorry, what?
Ass. Anyway.
Yeah.
There is a game that is coming out on the Xbox One launch, which sounds new and interesting. Crimson Dragon.
Yes.
It's a rail shooter, and apparently it's seen as a spiritual successor to the Panzer Dragoon series.
Yeah. It's not so much new and interesting as, blast from the past.
One of those. It's one of those games that tickles your nostalgia sense.
It definitely does. I'm very. Panzer Dragoon was a game I was never allowed to play because it was considered it was too expensive a console. It was too adult because I was still like 10 or 11 or 12 when that was out.
One of those. Okay.
So it was one of those I must play it at some point, but I only got to play it at Toys R Us for the demo. So that's just that harkens me back to my childhood and be great to fulfill. It does look like a good game. It looks like they're really giving it a good workover. It's not just going to be, something they're slapping together. They really want to reintroduce the genre in some way, and I'm really excited about that.
I would just be. I'm looking at the development history of this right now, and I would just be scared that I would just be hopeful that the game doesn't turn into another Cameo Elements of Power. By which I mean, Cameo Elements of Power was an Xbox 360 launch game that had been first a Nintendo 64 game and then an Xbox game before finally releasing as an Xbox 360 game, and apparently still felt very much like a Nintendo 64 game in terms of just about everything except the graphics. So considering they'd gone back and forth with this required the Kinect sensor, it didn't require the Kinect sensor, it was shown off over 2 years ago initially and still hasn't been released, I would just, be... Hopefully there's nothing really wrong with the title, but whenever a game is seems to be nearing completion, but then just goes through a whole bunch of delays. I always get a little nervous.
Sort of like Too Human from our good old
God.
friends.
That
I think you just killed
three
Ben.
different generations, and they still couldn't produce anything worth playing.
Wait, moment of silence.
For Silicon Knights, that doesn't really deserve it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I mean, I don't want to get into a rant on Silicon Knights here, but I mean, the reality is, at the end of the day, they made like one good game by themselves, and then one good game under somebody else's direction. And that's not to say that Nintendo didn't have a lot of influence on the initial one, but I mean, look at their failed Kickstarter attempts. There's a lot of apprehension about Silicon Knights and Dennis Dyack. But anyway, yeah, Crimson Dragon. That would be my one concern about the game, other than the fact that I'm not getting it because I'm not getting an Xbox One. Just again, when a game's been in development that long or delayed that long, you tend to be wary of it. Why is everybody suddenly scared about The Last Guardian? Because we haven't seen it in 2 years. I mean, there's something going on there.
True story.
Very true.
Which is unfortunate.
Never trust a game that's been in development hell forever.
Yeah, I mean, and especially when like people on the creative team leave, like they did at Sony for The Last Guardian. I mean, something's going on, but hopefully we will eventually see that game.
And hopefully eventually it'll be good.
Yes. Well, listen, I mean, we've been proven wrong. Everybody was convinced that Final Fantasy Versus 13 was dead and that Square Enix just didn't want to announce it, and they were just hoping people would forget about it so it would go away. And then meanwhile, it turns out that nope, it's actually being integrated as part of the main series canon, and it's getting a numerical entry, and it's being bumped back to a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One release. So we've been wrong before. Hopefully that's the case with The Last Guardian, and hopefully Crimson Dragon is still awesome.
Yep, and Crimson Dragon will be released on the 22nd with the other Xbox One games. Another one that is new is called Rise, Son of Rome.
Yes.
For another of you, for your historical games right there.
Yeah, trying to make 300 into a game.
That's probably the best analogy I've heard for that game.
Well, actually, that's funny. This was another game that was announced 2 years ago at E3 2011 as an Xbox 360 title. And then as a rebuilt as a Kinect game, and then rebuilt again as a Xbox One game. So
I'm guessing a lot of games that had the initial Kinect requirement have to be retooled now as part of Microsoft's backpedaling.
Well,
I suspect that that's the case with quite a few of these games that are going to be available on November 22nd.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I mean, I would assume that the developers were operating under the assumption that the Kinect, at the time, the Kinect was
required.
It was a required piece of equipment, so you had to make the game so it could work using that. Now, with the Kinect no longer required, now every developer who had Kinect integrated into the game are now going, oh, wait a minute.
Now what do we do?
Well, I mean, it's still being bundled with every single system, so they still know that it's going to be there. It's just a question of, they're going to put on the box, as they currently do, this game requires a Kinect, and then consumers will make the decision. But it's come down to the same thing. It's do we want to gamble that enough people will want to keep the Kinect plugged into their system for us to make that a required part of the game? For me, it would also say, if we're a developer, can we make this significantly and demonstrably better by including the Kinect functionality? Can we clearly say that this is absolutely unequivocally a better title using the Kinect by an order of magnitude than by not using the Kinect? For little things like, I think in Madden you can call plays by the Kinect. Well, great, if you're playing multiplayer, you've literally just given away your offensive line. That's not something that you're going to want to do. It's true.
Oh my god.
Guys, I'm going to run left now!
There was a... when Skyrim went to Xbox, and they have the Kinect, and they're like, now it's with the Kinect and you can do things, like, because you can actually scream out for the Skyrim to go quick save and quick load. And when I heard that, I had to pause the video and walk away and laugh, because I just imagined walking in to like James or someone else, and seeing them when they're like doing something stupid, like about to get killed, and then screaming out "quick save," and then just horrible things happening. Like it's really cool, but
or if you really want to screw somebody, quick load. You know, they're in the middle of a fight and they just jump back, like they've lost all the progress from the last time that they were playing. But I mean, yeah, if the developers can really add significant functionality, great. I think they should do it, and I think they're going to know the difference. I think it comes down to, you know, marketing decisions and other reasons why they should avoid that. But, you know, if they can find a good reason for it, cool, it'll be there.
I'm just thinking, you know, I could see Wyatt being a troll with that damn Skyrim.
I would drive up to Wyatt's house if I could, you know, Xbox off.
Or in the middle of town, cast fireball, and just bad things happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh god.
It's like you should have seen me watching Wyatt play State of Decay. Oh my god. Anyway.
Another game. Are we onto the Xbox One by this point, or?
Keep going. I think we're just now pretty much picking random stuff.
All right, if we're going back to Xbox One and like going through the new console stuff, Killer Instinct. I know that there's actually quite a few people excited to see that genre come back. Not genre, that IP come back. Yeah.
That was when I saw that at the Microsoft press conference. That was the only game on my want list, because I mean I did enjoy Killer Instinct for the Super Nintendo, and so it was the only one that tickled the nostalgia feel a bit. I mean I did enjoy Killer Instinct.
I was excited about Killer Instinct when I first heard about it. I was very surprised, and then I saw that, first of all, it's not being, I mean, it's kind of being developed by Rare, but it's not really developed by Rare, and the truth is Rare isn't the company that Rare was when they made the last Killer Instinct games.
Obviously.
And if you look at the pedigree of the company that's making it, it's not really good. Their titles are things like G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra, which was a terrible game. Green Lantern: Rise of the Manhunters, which was okay, not terrible, but okay. They made the game based on Battleship. Now, to be fair, that's you're starting from a disadvantage there, because we're talking about Battleship the movie, and they did not do well with that one either as a first-person shooter.
They make movie video games about this.
They have made games. Yes, they have not. Their track record is not stellar. They've done some games that were serviceable, but you know they're also doing the new Strider game, which is the reboot of the Strider Hero series. But that's, well, I mean, we'll see how that goes. That's too early to really call. But I mean, just my point is that I think that the nostalgia factor here is a little bit muted, because you're talking. It would be, you know, we know Miyamoto's worked at Nintendo for forever, but could you imagine if Miyamoto had left Nintendo, say, in the late 90s, and they hadn't made a Mario game since then, and then this year they announced they were making a new Super Mario game for the first time in, 20 years? It would be like, well, great, but things are a lot different, and you're not getting the same team behind this, so you're not... It feels more like they're going to make a fighting game, and hopefully they will try and stay true to it, but I also wouldn't be that surprised if they just made a fighting game that was more in line with modern fighting games that just happen to include classic characters. I'd need to be able to study it a little bit more, but I mean, it's the bottom line is, like I said, it's not, it's not even being made by the same guys who made the originals, so I don't know how much right we really have to expect that it's going to be the same kind of game. And even still, games from the 90s kind of suck nowadays. I mean, some of them are still great, but I mean, some of them you go back and you play them, you're like, wow, I'm really glad that things have changed. I went back and I played the original Mass Effect a few weeks ago, and I said to myself, I cannot believe how much shooters have changed since 2007.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, so I mean, it's not that unusual for things to have kind of shifted a lot. So I hope it'll be awesome. If nothing else, even if I don't buy it, I hope somebody else enjoyed it. I loved Killer Instinct back in the day, but I would not be surprised if that does not end well.
but we shall see on that.
Yep.
I think we'll chat about a couple more games before we cut to break, because we are nearing the halfway point here. I'll talk about a 3DS game that is apparently high on people's radars. A Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds.
Sure.
And I've been hearing a lot of hype about the 3D. I mean, I don't own a 3DS, but it will also be playable on the 2DS.
Woo! God, what a. I'm just not. I can't. I have to see that system in person, but But anyway, yeah. About the game looks fun.
It's from what I've seen, it kind of reminds me of A Link to the Past in terms of how it's presented.
Well, it's meant to.
And Nintendo actually bothered to explain this time where it fits in the chronology.
Yeah, well, they said specifically that it's the same overworld. It's the same, I think, world as A Link to the Past, just much, much later.
6 generations after.
So there you go.
So
timeline.
Hey, how about that?
The mechanic of folding yourself, turning yourself into a painting and moving along the wall looks really cool and unique.
That's Nintendo all over. They are not afraid to just like, hey, why don't we try this? Okay.
Well, you get the sense. I've been reading. There's a book that came out not that long ago about, among other things, it includes a lot of history of Super Mario Brothers 3, and you get the sense, really, just it's something the author touches on. You get the sense that Miyamoto kind of is like, I'm not really interested in making a game unless we can just do stuff that's different. Let's just take what we already did and do something else. So, I mean, they probably... I have no idea where the inspiration for this would have come from, but you definitely get the sense that it's like, okay, well, we did this already. Find something new to do. Now, some mechanics still hold over. I mean, I can't count on one hand the number of Nintendo games that include a light world, dark world mechanic of some kind, but, at the same time, that's kind of a unique thing. It's going to give people... it hopefully will give the developers new places to hide puzzles and new ways for to force people to look around a room, but I think it could be a lot of fun. I think it will be a lot of fun.
It's apparently also an interesting point that the game is also going to feature an alternate version of Hyrule called Low Rule.
Because puns.
I saw that and I went, oh, for fuck's sake.
Because puns.
Because puns. Hyrule, Low Rule, okay.
I mean, okay, I will give them credit. The inverted image of the Triforce does look cool, with the 3 black triangles and the golden one right side up in the middle. I'll give them that. That does look awesome. But, yeah, guys, really? Didn't Castlevania, like the Castlevania 3DS game a few years ago, have you play through everything upside down again or something?
Don't know.
I mean, upside down in other games, but I don't remember anybody using pun of... Well, I'm sure somebody has used something similar to Low Rule in another pun somewhere because it's too obvious and awful to not.
That game will come out November 22nd. However, I think it might be overshadowed by the Xbox One that day. But
yeah, oddly, the release is a month later in Japan for some reason.
Yeah, that struck me as a bit weird.
Sure.
It's like, okay, Nintendo.
Is there a reason? Possibly. Are we going to find out? Never.
Never. Absolutely not.
Oh well. But I mean, it's a Zelda game. It's people are already in love with it. It's gonna, I'm sure, do very well. I mean, for the 3DS title. But yeah, that should be a lot of fun.
One game that I'm really looking forward to, which is another blast of the past kind of thing, is the new expansion for XCOM, Enemy Unknown, the one that's now called XCOM Enemy Within. I don't think either of you guys follow that style of game, but I know a lot of people are really, really hyped. This is the most hype I've seen in my gaming communities for a new game that's coming out besides Watch Dogs, is for this new version. It's it's just an expansion that just expands on it. And if for those of you that don't know what XCOM is, it's a top-down like turn-based strategy game where you're saving the world from aliens, and it's kind of known as an old school style game simply because even though it's been made really shiny and pretty, it's one of the games that still has permadeath as one of its key tenets.
Oh yeah,
So-
isn't that the game where if you train your soldiers and if one of them dies, like they're gone, so there's supposed to be a much stronger emotional connection.
Yes,
for,
they're gone forever. So you get them and they're rookies, and then they get classes. So you have your sniper, you have your heavy, you have your scout kind of guy. And when I actually got the game, I went onto my team on campus that does Humans versus Zombies, and I named all of the characters after people from Humans versus Zombies. And behind each report that when someone would die or be critically injured, I'd actually write up what happened to the character and like kind of document it. And I made a huge Facebook group for this, and I had 100 people liking it and commenting on like, no, what happened to Jimmy? Because like just like the horrible things that could happen to you in that game. So if you ever want to just have fun with your friends, have them over, name every person in the party a friend of yours, and watch who dies in the most horrible way possible, because it's going to happen. And so like it has that old school kind of charm. They're making a new expansion which just doubles the amount of ways that you can do horrible things to your people, as well as turn them into cyborgs and stuff like that. And I just find it very funny that for me this holiday season, I'm excited for Watch Dogs. I'm excited for this XCOM game. I'm excited for. I might be getting a DS-ish system soon, at which point I'll pick up on Pokemon after a long time away from it. And then the only other one that I've really heard real hype for is Assassin's Creed. A lot of the other ones I'm not really hearing a lot for, besides woo Call of Duty, woo new Madden, but not so much for those either. Just sort of like, oh hey, they're out again.
Well, there's a couple of games that I would like to bring up in the second half, so
Sure.
we'll finish with that. So, as we cut to break, you'll have a few minutes of music, as per the usual, and we will pick this up in the second half. You're listening to Downloadable Content. We'll be back. Welcome back to Downloadable Content. Ben and Wyatt are still here. They haven't gone away. Yet.
Much as we'd like to.
Run away! So we will pick up the discussion, talking more about our holiday lineup of video games. We spent most of the first half talking about the PS4 and the Xbox One. We'll give some more time to the Wii U and the 3DS. And does the Vita have anything? I think they have a couple of games.
Vita! Sorry.
Yeah, that thing's not dead yet.
No, absolutely not. No, of course not.
Does anybody have a Vita?
I think I know maybe one or two people.
I didn't mean in the world. I just meant in this group.
In this world? No, I don't.
I have an iPad.
Well done! Bravo!
Oh, that's totally the same thing as a Vita. That's absolutely exactly the same thing.
When are people going to learn? Trying to take the handheld market away from Nintendo just earns you damnation. It doesn't work.
They're trying more just because the devices are physically in people's pockets more often. I don't think they're. Meanwhile, if Nintendo wanted to, inflate their stock price, all they would do is just release an official. I think Nintendo could very easily say, we're going to set a deadline, like 20 years or 15 years, whatever the date line is, and everything younger than this date line, tough, we're only releasing it on our own hardware, and everything older than this date line, we will license out to other places, and then boom, suddenly you have a very sustainable, franchising option that will definitely net them a ton of money. Like, they will go back to swimming through Scrooge McDuck piles of money if they did something like that. But they're not going to, which is a shame. Wait, here you go. There's the game for you on PlayStation Vita. And I know it's coming out in other places, but I think you'd have more fun with that on Vita. Angry Birds Star Wars.
Hooray. I gave Angry Birds to Jess when she had mono, and she still plays that and Bubble Witch Saga. She's played the same two iPad games for 4 years. I don't need another.
Maybe that's why they think that they can take away Nintendo's lunch money.
Oh no, I was talking more about the Vita, but yeah, goodness.
Obviously, the Wind Waker just came out. Cost too much.
There is, going back to Vita games, there is an alternate version of. Well, first of all, there's going to be a Spider-Man game coming out, so that'll be something because it's based off of the 2012 game. So for some reason, the Vita version is just coming out now. That makes sense.
Oh, yes.
And the same thing with the Injustice Gods Among Us fighting game. No, that's the Ultimate Edition. I don't know if that's the first release or not. There will also be Batman Arkham Origins Black.
Oh goodness.
Oh boy, I'm not that racist, I promise. But yes, Arkham Origins Blackgate is also going to be out on the Vita, which is a different version of the Arkham Origins title that's coming out. I don't know. Well, it's set months after Origins, so I don't know how well that's going to do. But I think that also is coming out on. No, it's just those two. I thought it was coming out on phones as well, but it's just going to be on the 3DS and the Vita. Yeah. Do we think it's better that when Vita and 3DS games get their own version of a title, or when they at least try and make it the same version? I mean, obviously they're never going to be able to pull off quite the same things. But while Wyatt's hacking up a lung in the background, that's okay. What do we think? Is it better when they at least attempt to make it the same game, or when they just genuinely say, nope, screw it, we're gonna this is gonna be its own title? Because I think it's better when they just acknowledge, yeah, this is not the same system. Let's give it its own title.
I agree. I definitely agree with you there. So, let's see what is coming out. Because we have another Olympics coming up. That means the next round of Mario and Sonic at the Olympics.
Hooray!
That is a Wii U and 3DS. Hooray! November 8th. And if I had a Wii U, I would be looking forward to Super Mario 3D World because, I mean, if there is a type of game that I really do, I've enjoyed forever, I mean, it's Mario platformers you can't really go wrong with.
Especially not 4-player versions of them. They just seem to be doing really well.
Unless you're playing it again with Reed.
Well. Which one am I? I'm colorblind, so I don't know.
No. It's not the colorblind. Reed takes delight in the fact of killing everyone off.
Well, I can see
True
that
story.
actually.
So,
Sonic Lost Worlds. I'm it's the Sonic cycle. You're cautiously optimistic, and then you think the game's gonna be good, and then it comes out and it's absolutely terrible, and then they announce the next one, and you think it's gonna be good, and you're cautiously optimistic, and then it turns out to be terrible. And so we're back.
Some cases you are surprised.
In some cases you are surprised. Well, I mean that's the funny thing is the more they've tried to kind of make Sonic into a next generation or newer generation thing, the worse off the games have gotten, and the more they've sort of simplified. It seems to have been doing better. I mean, apparently there was a downloadable demo of one level in this game, and I haven't heard people saying that it's atrocious. But then again, there was that Star Fox game where the first level was awesome and everything after that was terrible, so who knows?
There are some games that are just, I mean, we're suffering from, like you said, we're making bigger and open worlds and better graphics. And sometimes it's like, can we just go back to Tetris games and Sonic where we run in a circle forever? Sometimes the classics are the best and simple is better.
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's also then when you get back into the, mobile phone gaming versus gaming on
True story.
full platforms, because who are the teams that can afford to develop mobile phone, those short games with the guys that develop for mobile phones?
Fair enough.
Another Nintendo game on the docket is another Donkey Kong Country game. Which I enjoy. I mean, I really enjoy the Donkey Kong Country games. This is a Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which right now is a December 6th release day.
Did not pique my interest. I mean, I haven't played the last few Donkey Kong games, but I don't know. I heard about that, and I said I like when Nintendo announced it. I had no reaction one way or the other.
You're just like, yay.
It's yeah. Oh, you might as well have told me. Well, it's a Tuesday. Okay.
All right. Right.
Anything else? Do you have anything else to contribute to the conversation?
I am actually getting more excited about the Wii U. Like this is what I do for most console wars in terms of you wait it out for the first year, and then you start like going in and seeing like where the games are going. And I really like that Nintendo is showing that they're going to. The Wii U does have some interesting new things. I do like the dual screen thing. I remember playing the old, what's it called? Remember the Four Swords. The Four Swords. Remember the old Zelda Four Swords where you all had your own Game Boy Advance? Then you'd plug it into the N64 and you'd all have your own miniature screen.
Yes. Yeah. Yep, I do.
I love that the Wii U does do things like that.
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
Think with the new remake of Wind Waker and stuff like that, it's like going down to that price. And some of the games that we're talking about are trying new things. So I'm excited more for that than the other two systems.
The concept of the asymmetrical gameplay that they've been adding, and I know it's a fun buzzword that people throw around a lot, but it's true. There are some fun ones. There's some really cool, unique ideas. I mean, the problem is that it costs money for people to invest in unique, weird ideas. So you're not going to see a lot of it. I mean, the Wii U is just getting like just screwed left and right. They're not getting DLC for a lot of titles. They're not getting a lot of games right when they come out. There was the Deus Ex thing. Nintendo's in kind of a bad situation in that place. But
It'll all be fixed when Brawl comes out, the next Super Smash Brothers game.
I mean, I looked at all the titles that are available for the Wii U, and I'm excited by some of them. But at the same time, even with the system just getting a price drop, I have literally no desire to get up and go buy one. Which is unfortunate, because it's going to honestly be the first Nintendo home console, non-portable console, that I don't own, if that trend continues. And I I'm like, all right, no, it's not there.
You're not feeling it.
Nope.
I know some of my friends have been waiting for South Park: The Stick of Truth. That's another one that's been in development for a while.
They also had, there were some issues with Activision, I think was the publisher, or whoever was the publisher. I mean, so there were some other issues there that led to, I don't know if it actually even led to delays, but that may have affected
THQ. It was the THQ.
THQ, yeah. So there you go. So I mean, THQ.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
THQ having their financial troubles, also is probably led to some problems with the title at least. So I'm not terribly surprised if that did have some development issues. But yeah, I mean, the reception has been very positive. I was just at the New York Comic Con. There was a decent line for people to get online to play it. So
the South Park: The Stick of Truth, that's going to be an RPG, which, with the South Park characters, that has the potential for a lot of hilarity.
I'm sure there will be comparisons made to something along the lines of Conker's Bad Fur Day if they haven't already occurred, and just in terms of the general content of the title. But see,
We shall find out. Gran Turismo 6, which comes out on December 6th. It's outside of Mario Kart. It's the only other racing franchise I actually enjoy. Which I'm weird like that. I mean, I'm not a huge
sorry.
fan of racing games. It's like Mario Kart and Gran Turismo. That's about it.
That's fair. I mean, I have burnout, so I understand. And by that, I don't mean that I am burned out on racing games. I mean, literally, I have the Burnout series.
Yes.
So I understand.
Burnout.
Yeah, there it is.
Although I have to wonder if Gran Turismo 6 is going to require the same 8 gig install that Gran Turismo 5 had you do.
I don't see why not.
The problem is, I mean, I recently got Gran Turismo 5, and this takes up so much. It's not a question of do you want to install this on the hard drive. It is you must install this game on the hard drive. It's that detailed.
I mean,
so
I don't know. It's one of those things where when they know that the hard drive space is going to be there. Well, I mean, that's the thing. The idea behind putting hard drives in game systems was A, to get rid of the memory packs, and B, so that, developers knew they'd have some extra space to play with. It was a great way to make sure that they would be able to devote a little bit more room. The problem is that, when you start requiring a 6 gigabyte install, make good use of it. I mean, listen, I think the worst on record case of a game installation ever was clearly Metal Gear Solid 4, just because you had to install each act as you were playing through the game.
yes.
And if you ever changed, you had to switch, and I don't understand what was going on there. Like, there's just, from a computer science standpoint, I have no clue what was happening
What's
with
this?
that. But thankfully that was fixed. But yeah, so
It was just, I mean, yes, the game does run better when you have it installed, but it's just like, oh my, and and the install itself takes about 10 years. So, what have you?
roughly speaking.
Yes, roughly 10 years.
Yep.
For those of you who like Mario Party is getting another release on the 3DS called Island Tour. And, I enjoy the Mario Party games because it's the quickest way to lose friends.
Yeah, it really is. You think you know somebody, and then you play them in Mario Party,
And then they steal 2 stars from you, and it's death.
You hate them
Yeah.
forever.
Because then you hit chance time, and it's all over. There was another game that I saw. I just lost it. Where the hell did it go? It'll come back to me in a blinding vision.
take your time.
If we take my time, I'll be here all night.
Well, you still got that 10-year install to go through, so I think you're okay.
I'm also trying to see what indie games we have to look forward to, if any, for the holiday season.
I've noticed in general that indie games, I mean, well, one, like I said, they kind of march to their own tune, but indie games are actually now more on, like, spring to summer. I've noticed a lot of indie games come out more than anything.
That's to compete with Steam.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because Steam does there's crazy Steam sales every once in a while.
That's when most of my friends go broke.
Yeah. Well,
Shut up,
Yeah.
Steam, and take my money. Yeah,
Pretty
that
much.
happens to me.
wasn't the guy who did Minecraft doing another game? Or there was no. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the guys behind Braid.
I was going to say, because there is a Minecraft game coming for the PS4.
I'm sure it's just the same as Minecraft.
Yeah, well, it's called Minecraft. It's
That was it. The Witness is I think an exclusive for the PlayStation 4, although it's timed exclusive. So who knows what that means? Because apparently they're planning on making it for the PlayStation 4 and for iPhone or iOS. So that'll be interesting to see how faithful that's going to be.
when this episode will come up before this episode airs, but the next Phoenix Wright game, Dual Destinies, that comes out for the 3DS on October 24th.
That'll be awesome.
That's a series that I could be wrong. It's kind of one of those that kind of went to sleep for a while, and now it's like, oh, new game, hey.
Well, I think that you may be more right about that than you realize. I think the franchise was originally released in the U.S. as DS titles, but I think they were originally Game Boy Advance titles in Japan.
And now we have this game coming out on the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live on Halloween is Castlevania: Lords of Shadow, Mirror of Fate.
That was well timed.
That's like perfect timing for that series.
Yeah, Brian, the original Phoenix Wright game was released in 2001 on the Game Boy Advance, and then released in English for the first time in 2005 on the DS.
Ah, wow, I didn't know that.
Well, that was actually
4-year
kind of-
difference?
Yeah. Well, that was actually kind of what was so funny about it was, I believe so. I don't believe that it was released outside of Japan for the DS, for the Game Boy Advance. But anyway, what was kind of funny about it was in the first game, there were 5 cases that you dealt with, and the first 4 were clearly all Game Boy Advance versions, and then the 5th case, which is completely non-canon, which just made things weird, was built around the DS's capabilities, so the graphics were way better, and it would ask you to do a whole bunch of wacky stuff, and you're like, where was all this during the rest of the game? But yeah, the second game, actually, so the first 3 games were released on the Game Boy Advance in Japan before the first game made it out of Japan. They games 1, 2, and 3 were released between 2001 and 2004. Then the 4th game was released in 2007. So yeah, I mean, they kind of fits and starts.
Okay. Where was it? So, I think unless we have any other games we want to bring up, I just want to talk about what we think is going to be far and away the best sellers, the games that are going to be, the ones that everybody wants when, this November and December.
Watch Dogs.
Watch Dogs should do very well, I hope. The mainstays are going to do well. The Maddens, the Battlefields, anything with anything that's a sequel is probably going to sell a decent amount of things. But I think, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if, you look at this year's lineup and it feels a little lean, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's also because people are thinking, well, they're going to need the money for the consoles. So maybe pushing out fewer games right when the consoles come out isn't a bad idea, just to make sure that people will have enough to get both the console and the games that they want.
Maybe. I'm like I said, it's Watch Dogs for me, and I'm actually going to bet on. In terms of like big sells, I'd probably bet on the new Assassin's Creed, just because everyone likes pirates.
Yeah, I mean, again, here's some club.
So, and here's another question for you, because, kids like video games too. The Nintendo 2DS came out. Yeah, I know, you can make fun of the 2DS all you want, but Nintendo has explicitly stated that it's meant for kids.
Absolutely. I think... Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just think they should have done a better job with the price. Fun fact, if you do a quick Google search for a Nintendo DS, the image that comes up is of completely fake render, but that's a different story. It's one of those things where people look at it and I could see where some of the problems were, but I'm sure it's way more comfortable in person than it looks. I'd love to get my hands on one, but I think that if they were really thinking of trying to go aggressively after a younger market, they could have done better on the price. The thing I would absolutely love is just if Nintendo would release a system that had no new games of its own, but was just a portal to its back catalog, just something where I could access the eShop and just get all these Game Boy Advance games. That I would pay easily $100 for. But Nintendo, but a 2DS at $120 or $140, whatever it is, without
130.
the kind of access to the back catalog that I want. Yeah, okay, but they would need to up the eShop offerings a little bit for me to really go for it.
I know for the 2DS, actually on spritesanddice.com, my blog, if anyone doesn't know, from me and my friend John Glover, John actually did a
Shameless
huge
plug.
article. Yeah.
That's all right. I don't mind.
I just want to say that actually, John, it was not even me who did it. It's actually John that did it. He wrote an article saying that 2DS is brilliant, and he gave his analysis why. And one of it is that Nintendo is trying to actually broaden the amount of options available for people. So some people don't want to upgrade to the 3DS XL, don't want to do that, so it's broadening the options to make a more kids-friendly version. It's an interesting argument that kind of jumps on and says, hey, look, let's not just immediately bash them for what they're trying to do from a business standpoint. And I do know that it does look more accessible for kids. It looks a little bit more durable for kids. And I know that
It
actually
also doesn't
games...
come with a warning like the 3DS does.
Exactly.
Well, it
And
doesn't
it's also-
have to. It doesn't have the 3D capabilities.
Right.
Right, and it's
Can I-
also a little bit cheaper.
Can I just deconstruct the pricing argument for 1 second? Because I just think
Yeah.
this is really fun. The Nintendo 2DS is $40 cheaper in the US than the comparable 3DS is. It came out today. Pokemon came out 2 days ago. Oh, I'm sorry, it came out today.
They came out today.
Or-
Yep.
Yeah. How much does Pokemon cost? Anyone?
$30, or no, they went up to
$40.
35. Okay.
So there goes your pricing argument.
If you bought a 3DS, that's $200. It's
Well, I'm-
it's a totally psychological argument.
Yes, it is.
And I mean, in this, people are going to be strapped for cash in this holiday season. And when you see two consoles, two handhelds that can play the exact same types of games, cash-strapped parents are going to go for the one that's cheaper, obviously.
Did any of you ever play what was that game? What was the direct sequel to Wind Waker?
Spirit Tracks? Was that
Phantom
it?
Hourglass.
Phantom Hourglass.
My roommate just reminded me. Thank you. There was a puzzle in Phantom Hourglass that actually required people to fold their DS to be able to complete it. Now, obviously, all it was actually doing was just kicking it into sleep mode, but the in-game text is something along the lines of you have to fold this. So, wondering how 2DS users are going to react to that.
There is a sleep button
Yeah.
on the 2DS.
I mean, it's just... Listen, there have been some nice advantages to Nintendo having clamshell designs for their systems for a while. It protects the screens. You're gonna need something else to deal with that. I mean, there are reasons why you could look at it and you could deconstruct it. But the truth is, until I get my hands on it, I don't think I'm in any position to really criticize it. I don't know that it's necessarily just such an easy decision to have made it or not made it, as people are saying.
Yeah, no, and I actually, I got in the habit of watching for some research for my own articles, the Feedbackula on GameSpot.com, and I find it really funny because it's just him looking at all this, like the immediate arguments people are making, just kind of making fun of them, and he does one on the 2DS, and it's just like 4 minutes of people screaming, "Oh, it looks ugly! It looks stupid! It looks like a piece of cake! It looks bad!" And then
I've seen
at the end of it,
of a hammer, like a doorstop.
yeah, and then he just pretty much says at the end, "Well, guys, I think we're all forgetting it's a bleep 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 kids toy, bleep bleep bleep." Like, I think that's what he finally says. He's just like, "Come off it, people." So yeah, we have to wait and see what happens when it comes out, and I want to see it in my hands.
Definitely.
And for me personally, I think the idea of 3D games is a gimmick. I don't.
That's understandable.
This is just personal opinion. I mean, I think the idea of 3D games is a gimmick, and I don't see it really lasting a heck of a long time. I mean, obviously, I could be wrong, so I can certainly understand the appeal.
I haven't played it, but I've heard, or I haven't played much of it, but I've heard that the Super Mario 3D Land really, really benefited from being in 3D. So I'd encourage you to go back and read some more reviews on that and see what people were saying about the 3D involvement there. But I can also understand, the concern that this is just going to be a fad. I mean, like it is in movies a lot of times.
And with that, you said that the 3D is really good. So I mean, so this is going to be another one of those cases where the only people that can make a good 3DS game is Nintendo.
I mean, again, it comes down to how much of it is just these guys have worked with the hardware longer and so they know how to get all the little tricks out of it, and how much of it is just these are the guys who are willing and able to invest the time into something that's off the beaten path and seeing what it does for them. I mean, that's always been the problem with the Nintendo different titles. You know, I mean, it was an issue during the Wii generation. It's going to be an issue for the Wii U. It's an issue for the 3DS. I mean, it's less of an issue for the 3DS because there's not really the same kind of competition that they have on the home consoles, but there is the Vita, although that includes some touchscreen elements now anyway, so that argument may get thrown out. But, I mean, I think the problem is that they look for ways to make games quickly and easily and cheaply, and that tends to not involve doing things other than what they're accustomed to, and because of Nintendo's systems being different, there's an expectation of doing things differently, which is probably at least partially put into place by Nintendo themselves. So, yeah, do I think Nintendo are going to be the only people who can put out a good game that takes advantage of their system? No. Do I think they're the only ones who are going to on a consistent basis? Yeah, I wouldn't be that surprised.
Fair enough. So, the 2DS is out today. The PS4 comes out the 15th. The Xbox One comes out a week later on the 22nd, and then Black Friday.
Dun dun dun!
On which I will be safely hidden.
I
don't even want to be caught, when these consoles get released. Because you already know what's going to happen. Most stores are only going to have 4 of them in stock. If you haven't pre-ordered them.
Oh man, when the PS3 came out, do you remember all the wonderful, horrible news?
Yeah, oh god, the shootings and the other things, that was terrible.
Gonna wait for the headlines to come pouring in. So,
yeah.
So we think definitely Watch Dogs is going to be a huge seller in terms of new IPs. I think the franchise spam will also do well, as you guys have said, because reasons. And because, Call of Duty Call of Duty will sell $1 billion because...
Yeah.
Annoys the hell out of me. So...
I mean, people like consistency, people don't like change, and there's understandable, solid reasons why these titles sell. If these titles selling didn't come at the cost of other unique titles potentially being made, I'd have less of an issue. But we also, we buy our own sequels. We do. We just talked about how much we were looking forward to to two Nintendo sequels. I was talking about a Batman sequel. Sequels sell for very good reason. But
very true. Although I'm done with Resident Evil. If a 7th game gets announced, that's it. I'm done.
There's a wonderful joke to be made here about a game about zombies, a series about zombies always staying undead and refusing to die. But I can't be bothered right now to make that joke.
Of the consoles coming out, if I actually had the cash to get one, I would be more inclined to get a PS4.
How come?
It's cheaper, number one.
Sure.
More familiar with the PlayStation brand. I don't really... I have in terms of my own personal library, I have quite a bit more PS3 games than I do 360 games. And also because there's not much exclusive titles between the two consoles, I'm going to go for the cheaper one.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Also, let's be honest, PS4 or the Sony brand has purposely been orienting itself to become more player or gamer friendly. So,
yeah, beyond just the console being cheaper, you have Netflix, you have your MLB TV subscription. Those are things that you are required to have an Xbox Live Gold account to use. So you're paying for the privilege to be able to use something that you've already paid for on an Xbox, which is a policy that Microsoft has absolutely no plans to change, which I can understand from a business point of view. It makes no sense for them to change it, but Sony doesn't do that, so there's a great benefit right there.
Although, isn't Sony going to start charging for, the use of multiplayer, like $5 a month or something like that? There's going to be a slight paywall?
Yeah, I'm not saying there's no paywall, and I wish that weren't the case, but, I can understand... That I can at least understand, because they are running the servers, there are fees associated with that.
Yes, of course.
With you using Netflix, your system is already just talking to Netflix. Sony has almost nothing to do with it. Yeah. They pay to develop the app, but the money for that they could find in the couch cushions with all the other money they're making. So no, Yeah, I have an issue with Microsoft doing that, continuing to do that.
Whatever one of you wants to jump in, which system looks most appealing to you?
I mean, I'd probably go with you on the PlayStation. My concern about the 360, price aside, just for the second. First of all, I use my PlayStation way more than I use my Xbox. Because I think I'm more comfortable with the controller. I like the triggers on the Xbox 360 way better, but for just everything else about the rest of the controller, I like the PlayStation controller better. But aside from the price, aside from the restrictions with the online capabilities we just talked about, I'm not convinced that Microsoft's not going to try and put this kind of DRM back into the system. It was there once in the first place. There were very understandable business reasons why they put it in. They've kind of never outright said it's completely dead. They just said they're scaling stuff back right now. I wouldn't be surprised if this sort of slowly gets reintroduced. So do I want the company that introduced some ideas that people didn't agree with and then immediately backpedal on them, or do I want the company who looked at those guys and said, "Are you fucking kidding? No, we're going to make a system that people will know will work."
All right, Wyatt.
For me, I'm actually going to go to the side here. I'm actually thinking more at the moment Wii U. The reason for that is that I tried the Wii out, and I did like it. But I actually ended up gifting it to a friend after a while because I grew up with the Sega Genesis, so like sitting down with a regular controller and playing the game, and the Wii kind of was weird about that at times. I want to give it another shot because I haven't had a Nintendo system in my house for a while, and I want to get into that different style of games for a while. And also, Jess, my fiance now, wants to be more active in terms of like trying out games and stuff, but a lot of the ones on the Xbox don't interest her. While the new ideas on the Wii U seem to be nifty enough where they might try out new things, artistic things like where you draw with the stylus on the pad for her, like scribble knots and things, I believe, for her. But meanwhile, the controller is still normal enough for someone like me. So I might want to give that a shot because I really do want to play through a lot of Legends of Zeldas I've missed in the last several years, and I want to play through a lot of those game systems. And as of right now, from what I've seen, most of the new games that are coming out, they're still coming out with editions on the Xbox 360, which is the one other console that I have, or on the computer, and I have Steam. So I don't really see an issue, for me at least.
Fair enough.
That's perfectly fine. Fair enough. I said, do we have any final thoughts on the holiday lineup, or can I put this to bed?
Put it to bed, I think.
Then it shall be done. So, if you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, questions on this episode,
I'm good.
Or any other episode of downloadable content, you can get a hold of us in a variety of ways. You can go on our Facebook page at facebook.com/downloadablecontent. You can check us out on Twitter at DLContent, email dlcontent1@gmail.com. All episodes can be found on iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher, so a bunch of different ways to get downloadable content into your ears. So all it now remains for me is to thank Ben and Wyatt for appearing on this episode with me.
No problem.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
And have a good one, everybody.